There we go. Hello, my name is Colin. That is Jerry, and this is Noah, and we're going to talk some NXT. So, I don't know. That was a lame-ass intro, and I don't even care. Technical difficulties have been rocking our ass the entire time we've been doing this. So, 2020 has been a shit show all around in every way possible, and we know it. So, we're here to break down what was 2020 for NXT. Jerry first, how's it going? And Noah, how's it going for you, bud?
You start off, Gary.
I'm doing okay. Just ready to talk a little bit about some wrestling. As you said, this year was pretty much, it was a clusterfuck. It really, really was. Because I actually had to go back to some of the old NXT party episodes to find out where this year actually began. Because there was so much going on between January and then when the pandemic started, and after the pandemic started, it's just a blur to the point where it was a mixture of takeovers, it was a mixture of regular 2-hour shows. It's just been just a weird amalgamation of broadcasts from NXT, and then all the talent being shuffled around, and then you have maybe 20 people showing up every week versus a huge roster that we have, but everybody's at home. So it's weird. It's been a really weird year.
Yeah, it really, really has. I mean, we've seen so many things that, as fans of wrestling that we've been for so many years, we've never seen before. But Noah, what are your takes on the overall year?
Despite the circumstances we faced as a society, I still feel like NXT has done everything they can to give the fans what they want, that have been followers of the black and gold, and they've been trying to bring more with it too. We've had unique upsets. We definitely had some breakout stars, some incredible moments, awesome matches. Overall, it's still NXT, but I think they had a phenomenal year once again on a number of ways. Now, maybe there's a couple of ways people think they may have taken some steps back since they become a third brand technically. Now that they're on the USA Network. But overall, I still enjoyed NXT, and I look forward to reviewing and discussing it. Before we start, though, I do want to take a brief moment to acknowledge an NXT veteran. As you all know, we recently lost a very strong foundation of today's wrestling industry, and one, John Huber, a.k.a. Mr. Burley, a.k.a. Luke Harper. All I can say is my prayers and deepest condolences go out to his and his family. I appreciate those on Raw who gave a subtle tribute, Impact Wrestling for giving a subtle tribute, and I especially look forward to the tribute show hosted by AEW tomorrow night. My favorite moments with him included his debut on NXT when he squashed freaking Jason Jordan, and he became this foundation that we come to know as the Wyatt family, and he had an incredible run up his ways with the Wyatt family for NXT, and he had some remarkable matches and moments that will not be forgotten across both AEW and WWE. So again, to Mr. Broyley, I say thank you, rest in peace, God bless you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a terrible, terrible thing. 41 years old. He died 10 days after his 41st birthday. I mean, and out of nowhere. And my favorite faction feud that I've seen in the last 10 years, as much as everyone loved the Shield versus Evolution and this, that, and the other, the Shield versus the Wyatts, that was the hottest faction feud. I'm sorry, out of any company. And they didn't even have to touch each other at first.
Damn right.
And it was just boiling over. So, it's very, very sad, and he will be missed tremendously for a lot of people. So
I revisited him
Technical difficulties. Well, ladies and gentlemen, your multi-billion-dollar company resource brought to you by Microsoft.
See, this is I feel this is what was happening with Aaron and the boys earlier. So we'll see what
I,
happens in a
I,
minute, and if it
there's a
doesn't,
reason.
it's gonna
There's
stop.
a reason why Zoom has become a more popular used product than Skype. Just saying. I use Zoom for everything. It's now the foundation of my job. Skype, you suck. I'm
I'll look
sorry.
in.
It's as simple as that.
I'll look into it because this isn't gonna work.
Well, anyway. Uh, and he's gone. All right. Well, while he tries to get back in, I'm curious to know what match he freaking was going to say about Luke Harper, aka Miss Burley, aka John Huber. Yeah, and kudos to AEW, by the way, who literally respected his family's wishes to keep it private, and it wasn't COVID related; it was lung issues. And apparently, tomorrow night, literally one of the matches was booked by Brody Lee's son.
Mm-hmm.
That right there, I got nothing but respect for AEW. I'm
Well,
really
that
looking
and the
forward
fact
to that show.
that and the fact that they brought little Brody in and technically had him beat Omega, and Justin Roberts, that's his name, right?
Yes.
The ring announcer, he announced a new AEW champion, Brody Lee Jr., at a house show. I guess from what I read, it was after the Christmas episode.
It was after the taping, correct?
Yeah. So that's really huge. Huge.
Yeah, and the fact that a few people on the roster, they did know it, but nobody. And they literally kept it to themselves. That's how much respect they had for not this wrestler, but this man. Mad respect to all that were involved in this situation, whether it was knowing it or whether it was handling it. Kudos to good old JR, by the way, really stepping up and taking care of Brody Lee's kids and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Brody's family is in very, very good hands and has a ton of support. I'm really happy to see that. It's times like this, going off a tangent, where I feel like whether you define this as IWC, wrestling communities, marks, smarks, blah, 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 everything in between, it doesn't matter. We're all human at the end of the day. We all have feelings. Show some humility. Tomorrow's never guaranteed. Appreciate today and what you have, whether it's your family, whether it's part of your family, whether it's just the stuff around you. Appreciate every moment you have in life, because truly everything could be taken away from you, including yourself, in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping that the legacy of John lives on for years to come, because there hasn't been a death that I've seen in the wrestling community like this on this level since Benoit, since Guerrero.
I agree, 100%.
And that's, I was in high school then. Like in high school for Benoit, or no, in high school for Eddie, and then just graduated after, or just before Benoit. So
there you go. Yeah, and both these men, they had their moments at WrestleMania 20 together, and then you think about what happened where Eddie, he just passes on, and Chris Benoit, he loses himself to the point he affects so many around him, maybe not realizing it. Truly, we lost two of the greatest in all of pro wrestling ever around that time, and the wrestling industry never was the same. And you think about all the losses we faced this year. It's a crazy thing. I mean, yeah, 2020, you've truly tested humanity. I can only hope that it brings out more humility in us all. I mean, again, like I said, people can blast this guy for sure, JDMY 206 from New York. I suddenly listened to his thing, and what's interesting is he didn't start tirading Monday Night Raw, because sometimes you need to wake up, you just need to hear a guy yell about, what the fuck is this booking madness? The Keith Lee is not a superstar. He is not a top superstar. He is a joke. And you want to tell me that since he beat Sheamus and is challenging Drew McIntyre for the title, that makes him a top star? Go fuck yourself. It's like, okay, yeesh. But I will give him credit. On his last episode, he started off with a very subtle, very humble, it seemed, disposition about life and Mr. Brody Lee. So even in the worst of people, I feel like in the most emotional of times, I feel it brings out the good in everybody, or at least the people you least expect. So again, recognize each other just as human beings, not as something else in between. That's all I gotta say about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that impression was not to mock JD. I just was quoting basically what he was saying, okay?
I can't stand that douchebag.
But again, we're all human at the end of the day, so kudos to him showing humility in that moment. Anyway, while we wait up for Jerry, let's go ahead and we already started. I mean,
Yeah, let's
folks,
just
apologies
start.
again. Technical difficulties. I humbly apologize on behalf of Skype. 2020, it kicked off with a bang. I thought we had NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2, and my honest memory of that was the 1 year you think about that scar Joe Coffey still had when Walter Daling General kicked him back in 2019's January NXT UK Takeover Blackpool after Pete Dunne successfully defended the NXT UK Championship. Then we go 1 year later, Blackpool 2, here at the beginning of January 2020. We had the women really have a wild triple threat opener, tear it up, where friendships were tested and psychological warfare was the name of the game. Couple moments you thought anybody could win this. In the end, Kaylee Lay, she outsmarted them, came up with the win. Eddie Dennis playing psychological warfare with Trent Seven. I know I just totally matched out of order. Botch, sorry. It was more so I feel like Eddie Dennis just trying to make a name for himself at the expense of one of the pillars of British Strong Style and this brand. And then, honestly, I know we had the four-way ladder match. That was great. I know we had Joe Coffey versus Welter and Ilya Dragunov, Alexander Wolfgang involved. That set up a number of fans, including one of my biggest matches I can't wait to talk about. But personally, for me, my match of the night, Jordan Devlin and Tyler Bate, they stole the damn show, man. Jordan Devlin was out to prove a point why he is the best wrestler in the world. He likes to call himself. No weight being talked about here. But Tyler Bate, of course, being the NXT UK champion, he was out to prove a point, and he had to dig deep into his barrel of tricks and into his just so young in the wrestling industry, everything that he's known, and he put out the win. But Jordan Devlin, what a fight and what a way to break out from this brand. Honestly, to me, that was my favorite match of that night. What was your biggest standout from NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2?
You want to talk about a breakout? Eddie Dennis. Well, he did the Trent Seven that night.
Oh, the Severn Bridge out to Razor's Edge.
You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah,
yes.
That was a scary spot.
Bate and Devlin had a fantastic match. Don't get me wrong. But Eddie Dennis did something that night to establish himself.
As a real threat.
So I really enjoyed the pay-per-view overall because, I mean, the talent was just stacked. That ladder match was ridiculous.
That four-way ladder match. Imperium, Mark and Flashpoint Webster, Mark Andrews, I almost forget his name. Grizzled young veterans. And, of course, the champions. And they stayed on top. Gallus.
Right? We did not have one single title change in NXT UK this year.
No, but we did have a setup when the show was over, despite the fact that Imperium leader stood tall. He did not end the show on his feet because, of course, this show teased Worlds Collide. And this time it truly was NXT versus NXT UK. And we got the Fantasy Dream match. As after NXT UK Takeover Blackpool 2 concluded, who comes out to attack Imperium? Undisputed Era. And they lay everybody out. But it wasn't left unforgotten. As, of course, up to Worlds Collide, we've had confrontations, particularly where Daling General Walter graced NXT USA again and chopped Adam Cole inside out, upside down. Oh my gosh. And then, of course, that led to our setup of Worlds Collide. Whew, Worlds Collide. You talk about a great show that really brought this idea of if wrestling companies should just come together, not be separate, you'd be surprised what can happen. Even if it's just one night, you don't forget what you saw. I don't know about you, but this is what I thought Worlds Collide should have been, personally, from the get-go, as Jerry right now tries to rejoin us. So while we wait for that to rejoin, I can't wait to get his thoughts on this. Colin, take me through your thoughts on Worlds Collide this year. What a show.
All right. We had the pre-show match with Mia Yim and Kaylee Ray. Just something thrown together. It didn't make sense, but whatever.
The one flaw.
We had Balor versus Dragunov. We had the Fatal 4-Way NXT Cruiserweight Championship match that was just off the chain. So it was Angel Garza defending against Isaiah Swerve Scott, Jordan Devlin, and Travis Banks. Devlin picked up the win and took that belt to NXT UK, which I thought was awesome. And then we had good old Mustache Mountain versus DIY. in a classic. I thought that match was just it was great to see Gargano and Ciampa as a team again. Mustache Mountain works very well as a team. Rhea versus Tony Storm, a repeat of the inaugural finals for the UK title, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then we had the match of the night, Undisputed Era versus Imperium. And Imperium came out on top with a 3-4 disadvantage because Alexander Wolf tucked his chin too much and got knocked the fuck out by Bobby Fish. And they had to redo the whole match on the fly. And it worked. I'm going to see this.
Freaking Roderick Strong, though, he demonstrated why his last name is Strong with that freaking Olympic slam on Walter for the announce table. That was a ridiculous feat of strength in a spot. Walter was definitely the difference maker here, though, for his team, because when he came in, he just ran roughshod, chopping everybody and literally drop kicking Strong and Fish into next week. And at the end of the day, Imperium pulled it together and got the win and proved why they are the strongest faction and the mat is sacred. While Jerry, you're frozen again. Oh man, if nothing else, I just wish he could just talk. Okay, wait, he's back. All right, let's try this. Okay, Jerry, I want you to finally speak to us now. Talk to me about your thoughts on Worlds Collide. Come on, man. Let's see if this works.
It was an excellent show. Pretty much you guys covered everything. I was just kind of sitting here listening and frozen more or less. Yeah, I caught it all. Pretty much anytime I get to see Jordan
Devlin. He's talking about Jordan Devlin.
He's talking about Jordan Devlin. It just makes his day because Jordan Devlin's like one of his all-time favorites because he never bet against an ace. Also, there was one match we didn't
Jordan Devlin wrestle.
Yeah, Jordan Devlin wrestle. It's a good thing. Yeah, you were breaking up. You were breaking up a little bit there, partner.
Yeah, I just had to bow out of this, man. This signal is not holding it here at all. This is me on my tablet.
It's all good, man. Technology can be a real bitch, but we'll definitely come together and talk wrestling. Shout out to Jeff Meacham. If you follow Jeff Meacham Network, folks. Again, real soon. So if it doesn't get fixed before we're done here, I just wish you a Happy New Year and bid you adieu. God bless you, brother.
See you, buddy.
See you, Colin. Enjoy your chip.
I will.
Glad he said chips and not what I thought he said. Anyway, there was one other match, though, that I thought was a real staple, and that was Ilya Dragunov versus Finn Balor, because 2020 to me was the year of Ilya Dragunov. Ilya Dragunov, he really stepped up his game when you fight was going to be with Dallas, and he was in the fight with Imperium on the way to TakeOver. But in the end, he kind of cost Joe the match because an inverted Torpedo Moscow, it nailed freaking Wolf, but Wolf went into Coffee knocker way, it screwed up Coffee's leg, and he was never able to recover. Following that point, though, Finn Balor and Dragunov, they kicked off Worlds Collide in a banger of a physical war, and the Prince, who truly has defined himself as one of the top stars of NXT, now being the current champion, he really brought it together this year, starting with this show, getting the win in the end. Again, it was NXT versus NXT UK, and while NXT, they did have a number of great wins, including Rhea Ripley, DIY, and Finn Balor, I still feel NXT UK won the night because they won the main event, and I'm just always going to stand by that.
They won a belt and a main event.
Yeah, that's right, because we always wonder, hey, what if freaking, what if NXT UK got like a mid-card championship or some sort of national championship or reinvented the European championship? I was like, no. But at the end of the day, they did create some stuff, and it worked for what happened. So we got through Worlds Collide, and we got through the first takeover of the UK. Let's talk about the first takeover of this great country, USA. As, of course, we had going towards the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic was back in full effect, and we had teams including the grizzled young veterans, one-time appearance of the Time Splitters, Alex Shea and Kushida. But the real breakout standouts here was the impromptu team of the Broserweights, as the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne was paired with the Bro, Matt Riddle. And they ran roughshod through this, including beating Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews to make their ways to the finals. Other stories that came out of this included Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic renewing hostilities, but also they were kind of going after each other when it came to the North American Championship. As, of course, Roderick Strong, of course, he was also the holder of the belt at the time. But anyway, as we move forward, to sum it up, we are moving towards NXT TakeOver Portland. Headlined, of course, by Tommaso Ciampa, who was back finally in the spot he wanted to be to try and get Goldie. After planning Adam Cole through tables and a lot of psychological warfare and proving why he's still the Blackheart, this match was made official and it was our main event. So we head to NXT TakeOver Portland, and it was a memorable show in more ways than one. Colin, take me through your thoughts on Portland.
Yeah, so we saw Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic battle for the North American Championship in a 20-minute badass match because those two dudes can just go.
Yeah, right.
Keith Lee retained. Dakota Kai and Tegan Knox got their rivalry feuded up in a street fight. That was okay. I mean, I wasn't blown away by it.
Meh.
Balor versus Gargano was amazing. Those two boys can wrestle. The EST of NXT, well now WWE, Bianca Belair lost against Rhea, going for the NXT Women's Championship, which was actually a pretty short match, just over 13 minutes. It's actually both women's matches were 13 and a half minutes long. So the Broserweights, sorry, they won the Dusty Classic, so that means they got the challenge, Undisputed Era, for the tag titles, and they won. And I don't know, it was a cool tag team, don't get me wrong, but I just feel it was just filler because they literally had nothing else for those two awesome athletes to do. I was still never super full on the Broserweights, but Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa, baby, what a match! These two dudes beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah,
and I really don't know how either of them walked away. It was just a hard-fought, brutal match. And, you know, I just... Oh, man. I don't know, man. We had Gargano be a dick. And it was just a great pay-per-view. NXT TakeOvers always deliver, but to see an old feud reignited over Goldie when they just teamed together the month before, it had been cool. So, no, I thought it was a good pay-per-view. I always enjoyed it. Again, I'm not shitting on Riddle and Dunne as a team, but they shouldn't have been done. You know, whatever. They were tag champs. It's cool. But their resumes deserve better than that.
And the biggest thing that came out of it was not so much their championship win, but the fact that Riddle made a shirt with a silly rhyme, and he made an entrance with a golf cart. It was more humor, I felt like, coming out of that team, even though they both are incredible single athletes. But yeah, the team all together, it just felt weird to me. And I saw them live during free NXT road shows that I saw in March in Columbus, Cleveland, and Detroit, in that order, defend those titles successfully. But you didn't hear how much fish could Bobby Fish fry if Bobby Fish could fry fish. You didn't hear that at all. And I'm like, hey, that's always going to be now a freaking thing. But I digress. But overall, it was an amazing show. And yes, the angles with Charlotte Flair challenging for the NXT Women's Championship that Rhea successfully defended against Bianca Belair, because we saw the fall between those three to the point that Charlotte Flair was not welcome on NXT. I love that sort of type feeling from a crowd. It's not that, hey, remember you from NXT, go back to your brand, you're on Raw, you don't belong here. Period. Respect to that crowd staying faithful to the black and gold. No offense to Charlotte, but I'm just saying, I like that sort of like idea of, turf war basically. And ownership. And then also, I got to give it to the opener, Keith Lee and Dominik Dijakovic. My God, what an incredible match for the NXT North American Championship, defended by Keith Lee successfully. And the point that literally he hits Dominik Dijakovic with the Spirit Bomb, and he literally just somehow pops up standing, even in angst, standing from it. That was a ridiculous moment. Even Keith Lee couldn't believe that. And then, of course, follow up, though, the pain was just too much. He gets him with the Big Bang Catastrophe, and he does get the win. But still an amazing match. Dijakovic going all for broke with that freaking springboard cannonball from the top rope. Perfectly, I might add, in between the announce tables to Keith Lee, sitting perched in a chair. Those two welled into each other, left nothing a chance. It was about heavyweights acting like cruiserweights. Fucking loved it, top to bottom. As you saw, they talked about the street fight. It also introduced us to Dakota Kai's friend, bodyguard, and might I say, a breakout star of the year, in my opinion, Raquel Gonzalez. As of course, Tia Nox, she did fall short in the street fight thanks to Raquel showing up and basically saving Kai's neck, because literally Tegan was ready to kill her. I could tell. And yeah, we of course had the Broserweights beat Undisputed Era, the great attack match, and then Bianca Belair, she put a hell of an effort against Rhea Ripley. Again, the NXT Women's Division is the strongest women's division in the business. Next to Impact Wrestling, and literally those two killed it. But Charlotte Flair came in, made her intentions known, so it kind of, I feel like, hurt the moment. But then, yeah, the main event where these two went all for broke, Undisputed Era, ref distractions, belt uses, weapons are coming down to Johnny Gargano, giving in to his bitter hatred, it seemed, for what freaking Ciampa did to him, or what Ciampa was, including one of the longest reigning NXT champions. That was a wild, wild angle. It left me going, what the fuck? And definitely things picked up from there. All right. Moving on from there, let's go to the other side of the pond as we go to NXT UK, where things were picking up here too. First off, they did give Walter a new NXT UK championship. By new, I mean they literally changed out the W logo for the NXT logo. Stupidest decision ever, but okay. And
I think it looks better.
It does look better, but the fact that I have to buy another belt just to change the logo pisses me off, and I'm not doing that. Because, as you know, I have the original NXT UK belt with Walter side plates, as I have the new NXT belt with Undisputed Era side plates. Not Adam Cole, but the Undisputed Era, just general ones. But I digress. Enough about my gold mine. Anyways, we go over to NXT UK. Ela Dragunov, Joe Coffey, they renewed hostilities where Joe Coffey says, Ela, you have a debt to pay, so he paid that. We also saw Ridge Holland continue to make impressions as he became one of the biggest prospects to be excited for, and literally went on an undefeated spree, it seems, including against Tyson T-Bone. As Toni Storm and Kaylee Ray, they continue their hostilities over the NXT UK Women's Championship. We also saw Cassius Ohno come out and be the wrestling genius, even though Chris Hero, I'm sure, is somewhere in my eye going, what the hell? As this all continued, though, things got really interesting across NXT UK for a couple of reasons. When one, Finn Balor showed up and was making his intentions known that he would like to go after Walter and the NXT UK Championship. This, of course, eventually led to a number of crazy things to come out, including freaking over-the-top rope Battle Royal, a Wild I Quit match to the point that Piper Niven had to literally remind Tony, think about your career, it's not worth it. Tony was willing to literally die for that title, and almost did, as Kaylee Ray looked like she was about to break her neck in a chair. Thanks to Piper Niven saving her, forcing Toni Storm to finally give in and say, while crying, I quit. I'm not going to lie, that was a very emotional, physical match for me on a number of reasons. Dave Mastiff eventually challenged the Ligne General Walter for the NXT UK Championship in what was probably one of Walter's toughest bouts to date, but he fell a little short. And then Ela Dragunov, he truly showed he could hold up with the best of them when he took on the Iron King to simply pay a debt. Both men did not come out the same way they came in, with hindered body limbs, but at the end of the day, Joe Coffey subtly said, You'll pay at your debt. You'll pay at your debt. And basically, from there, things kind of slowed down due to reasons. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. As we go back to NXT and following the events of Portland, everyone's wondering, why, Johnny, why? And Rhea Ripley now has to worry about defending the NXT Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. In history-making match. The NXT Women's Championship at WrestleMania in front of 80,000 people in Tampa Bay. Except that didn't happen. Because, unfortunately, as we move into March, the day that affected the entire world, not the wrestling industry, a day that affected the entire world, a pandemic struck the earth and shut down wrestling as we know it in society. And thus, NXT UK was halted, and WrestleMania was officially not canceled, but moved into the Performance Center as a 2-night spectacle in front of nobody. Holy hell! Who would have thought in 2020 we literally would have WrestleMania, wrestling pay-per-views in front of nobody in a small empty building? It's the fans, it's that noise, it's that ambience that defines a wrestler when it comes to the passion, the energy, the storytelling, and the overall just way that they go about their business. And they had to adapt on the fly with this. For the longest time, we saw the other rosters, they focus on archive stuff, it seemed. However, NXT, they tried to move forward with everything they were doing, while Dakota Kai, Tegan Nox, they were continuing their feud, but Tegan Nox, she got injured. Things were really getting hostile between Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, to the point that literally at one point at the end of a show, when it was in the Performance Center from a limited audience, we literally find the two go off the stage via air raid crash, and literally it seemed like they were destroying the Performance Center. This forced Triple H to show up on the NXT scene, literally in the middle of the ring, and put these two in their place and give them one final match. So it was made in 2 weeks. The first time ever in NXT. I guess you could call it cinematic. It was weird, but it wasn't cinematic in my opinion because there's no like music or stuff like that. It was like big empty building and a truck and all that sort of stuff. But they had their own type of match called the Final Beat. But before all this, NXT, there was nothing. So what did they do? They literally gave us one-on-one sit-down interviews and video packages discussing both these men and literally their journey before and during NXT and where it could go from here. Now, before we go into what the pandemic did bring out of NXT, because NXT UK was on the shelf for a number of months because of this, Colin, I'm just going to ask you straight out. I want you to give me your thoughts on, first off, how the pandemic affected the world and how it affected NXT.
Well, I mean, you got to think it affected everything. I mean, it affected my job personally. I sat home for a month. I haven't worked anywhere near the hours that I normally have since. Anybody in the UK was automatically shut down. There's travel bans. There was more crackdown than there was here in the United States, that's for sure, and that's why things are better over there now than they are here. But that's a different topic for a different time. But
yeah.
But it struck hard in Florida because Florida had different rules and stuff, and you have a lot of people coming in and out of Florida because that's where NXT is, but they don't live in Florida. They might, you know what I mean? You got to be there like what, 1 day a week? You know what I mean? So maybe 2. It may be 2 days a week you have to be there. So if you live in North Carolina or whatever, you go home and then you go back, whatever. So a lot of people aren't able to travel. Visa issues, like we saw. I'm pretty sure the reason why Rhea lost that championship to Charlotte is because she was having visa issues. And they didn't know it was work visa issues, not just a regular visa, work ones. So, it affected everything overall. But yeah, I mean, you don't know who you can bring in, who you can bring out, all the restrictions, the changing of everything. I mean, it just didn't just affect NXT. It affected the way Raw was done. It was affected the way SmackDown was done, AEW, the whole spectrum. I mean, luckily, here in the States, we could still have those go on. Unlike in the UK, everything was just shut down.
Yeah.
That's why, again, there has not been a single championship change in NXT UK this year because of that. So I'm gonna call out bullshit on all those records that those people have because they didn't defend them for 6 months. So if Walter breaks Pete Dunne's, I'm gonna be pissed because he doesn't deserve to do that. Dunne actually defended.
Just to draft 180 days from that number, but continue.
But no, it affected a lot, and it was super weird seeing shows go on with not a single person besides the camera guy and the referee. You hear every little thing, you see every little thing. It was super weird to see. And then you see, you have Roman Reigns who takes time off because, he has an immune system disorder and he's got a baby and stuff, and then you see Daniel Bryan taking time off because his wife's pregnant. And you see all these key players taking time off, and then they're like, all right, we got to, somehow, get somebody else up into the spot. So they're trying to figure something out, and then it's not working. And then they're misusing dudes that should be used. It was kind of a shit show for the first couple months. I'm not going to lie. It really was. We saw more interviews and more promo vignettes than a lot, and I get it, but I don't know.
Right. And again, without an audience. I mean, let's think about how it first affected NXT UK, okay? Rich Holland, he was making waves as an undefeated superstar. It looks like a feud was being built between him and Joseph Connors after they eliminated each other in a number one contender over the top rope battle royale to determine who would challenge the Ligue Generale at the next takeover, which was supposed to be NXT UK TakeOver Dublin. But that pandemic canceled all that together. While people are like, Becky versus Kaylee Ray, please. Didn't happen. And then Finn Balor, you think, will be challenging Walter. Didn't happen. Or maybe he would challenge Tyler Bate. Didn't happen. And then, of course, during Devlin, he couldn't defend the NXT Cruiserweight Championship because that freaking pandemic hit. And then Ilya Dragunov and Tyler Bate are the last two in that Battle Royale. Comes down to them, and Ilya Dragunov wins and declares finally his time and moment to challenge the Ligue Generale. A match years in the making, considering these two history, at least I know of, when they were with each other in Germany, when they really went up and down the roads with each other in matches. Progress, WXW, thank you, WXW, you name it. Speaking of WXW, let me also add we had the rise of a Valkyrie, as Aylor Valkyrie took the NXT UK scene by storm, literally, left an impression. Aylor Valkyrie? I might be screwing it up. Apologies if I screw up your name, Miss Valkyrie. But she has taken NXT UK by storm, owned this division with her style. I loved her match with Violet Dawn, by the way. And she is currently still undefeated at time of recording. And honestly, she was one of my big standouts to really take over the brand this year. We also had our first ever, though sloppy, it has to be acknowledged, British rounds match with one Cassius Ohno, the self-proclaimed wrestling genius, and Sid Scala. Sid Scala's only match since ever becoming the assistant to the general manager, Johnny Saints. In the end of that match, that was just, good Lord Almighty, I don't even know how to describe it, okay? Cool concept, but wow, that was bad. And in the end, Cassius Ohno, he does win. Now, the reason I'm talking about that is I will bring it up in the months to come as we progress. But that's just some solo thoughts I wanted to give to NXT UK. Now, before we move into April and what they did with NXT TakeOver Tampa Bay, which also was canceled, but they tried to reinvent it through TV. Con, do you have any thoughts regarding what was going on in NXT UK? What were you excited for or looking forward to?
I mean, I was of course looking forward to Dublin because we had so many cool things that could have happened.
Yeah.
Walter versus Balor. I mean, and then you have Balor take the belt and stay over there because Stu's not going to want to watch it with Finn Balor on it. You know what I mean?
Good point.
He's champion. Views go up. He can be home near his family. You know, be like no different than sending Drew McIntyre there. Or what I'm hoping is when he returns, David Hart Smith goes to NXT UK and wrestles as the British Bulldog Jr. and takes that belt as a babyface from Walter.
Hmm.
But that's another story for another time. But no,
I guess.
NXT UK. What else could we have done here? I mean, there was a lot of things.
People wanted Kaylee Ray versus Becky Lynch.
That would have been great. Don't get me wrong. That would have been awesome. And what I really would have loved to see, because I can't remember who was tag team champions at the time.
Gallus.
Yeah, well, I think Gallus, but on the NXT side, was it the Broserweights?
It was.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked with them. I don't know. I was thinking something different with Gallus, but I mean, Devlin, you could have, because then you had the NXT Cruiserweight Championship that would have been on that as well, and you could have had, I mean, literally anybody. You could have had a rematch, Tyler Bate versus Jordan Devon for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship.
I honestly thought that was a match that was waiting to happen too. I gotta be honest with you.
So, I mean, there's 100 different things that could have seen, but no, I really was looking forward to it, and I was upset when they got canned because it was like, all right, we know we're getting like at least 3 more weeks of it, and then after that, like, what's
the weeks turn to months?
Yeah, because we knew they taped like 3 extra out, but I mean, it is what it is. So
yeah.
No, I'm glad it's back though.
Yeah, me too. Kudos to Andy Shepard, by the way, who kept us trying to be in high spirits as he literally was hosting one-on-one interviews weekly with the NXT UK talent, both men and women. I was following that on Instagram a lot. Great interviews across the board. Truly showed how passionate these fine men and women are to build this brand, to make it their own, to show you the best in professional wrestling in Europe and beyond. Because as we learned when NXT UK returned, it truly was about country pride. But we'll talk more about that later. Let's go back now across the pond to NXT and how they were affected. Going into March, we had feuds, we had teasers, we've had great matches. We've had the Velveteen Dream going after Adam Cole, baby. Mind game wise, literally making it personal with Roderick Strong first. But he wanted the NXT championship. So clearly we were saying up Adam Cole versus Velveteen Dream. And people at this time are like, Velveteen Dream should be champion, should be the next champion. He's going to do it. Possibly. And then, of course, we had other stuff going on with the North American division led by Keith Lee, who was challenged by all comers, including Dominic Dijakovic, who would not leave that alone. Karen Grimes. And, of course, Damian Priest, among others. We also had Deonna Purrazzo really trying to make her ways as her and Tegan Nox. They had some matches, but also up and coming through the rankings as we were preparing for a gauntlet match to define a ladder match for the women for a championship opportunity. One Shotzi Blackheart, who truly showed us what she was made of when she went through the gauntlet, including Deonna Purrazzo. Again, congratulations to Deonna Purrazzo, fast forwarding all the way now, that she's the current Knockouts champion in Impact Wrestling and also Wrestler and Knockout of the Year. Absolutely well deserved. You all watch Impact Wrestling, you're missing out. Just saying.
2-time, right? 2-time champ.
That's right. 2-time Knockouts champion. We also had, of course, build up as Finn Balor continued to tease that he was coming for Walter. He wants Walter. And, of course, as we were building towards WrestleMania, who shows up on the brand? Charlotte Flair and Charlotte and Rhea. They are going tooth and nail against each other in a war of words. The Broserweights also defended their titles in a rematch clause-based match against Undisputed Era. Undisputed Era lost. And then, of course, like I said, this led to Gargano and Ciampa literally trying to destroy one another to the point we had an air raid crash off the stage. Meanwhile, as we go from there, like I said, we literally look at DIY's legacy. We look at Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, the early beginnings before NXT, how these two were friends, how these two turned against each other, but how Ciampa feels even more hurt now with Johnny Gargano doing this. But he understands why, too, because at the end of the day, these two are out to prove who is truly NXT, who is truly the best. And again, it came to the point that Triple H says, you all need to sell this, or NXT will continue without both of you. And neither one of those men was going to take that. And, of course, we had the final beat made. Now, before we get into that, again, since Tampa Bay was not happening, we also got Tampa Bay impromptu matches on NXT TV. This included I believe it was a six-way. Apologies if I screwed that up, but it was a women's ladder match for number one contendership to challenge for the NXT Women's Championship, a triple threat for the North American Championship, and of course, we had the Velveteen Dream versus Adam Cole, baby. But we also had a bunch of other weird stuff happen too. Weird abductions have been happening recently, where a man after Raul Mendoza and Walking Wild have been going after each other, and then they've been fighting in singles. They've been abducted and just rolled off an event, not even hit and run, just take and run. And we're like, what the hell is going on here? But also, TikTok. There was a tease of some ominous presence coming onto the NXT scene as we hear a clock and riddles of promos that you can take a Da Vinci Code to and still never fully understand. Anyway, we had Priest versus Dijakovic versus Keith Lee for the North American Championship as our first match in accordance to showcasing NXT TakeOver Tampa Bay on TV in front of nobody. I don't know about you. I thought this was a pretty good match for what the men had to deal with. And at the end of the day, Keith Lee did retain. But you got to admit, Damian Priest being innovative with that baton stick. He came close, but it just wasn't enough. Okay, so give me your thoughts on the way they handled NXT TakeOver Tampa Bay and also the teases of things to come.
Well, I mean, honestly, I thought they did the best they could with it because if your show gets scrapped, what can you do? You can put it on TV and let it play out. That's the only thing you can do. So I thought they did it the right way. I wish they would have put a kind of a theme with it, like they did with Halloween Havoc or with Great American Bash. I wish they would have put, pretty much called it the takeover.
I agree.
But I mean, yeah, the baton deal with Damian Priest, always fun. But again, seeing Dominik Dijakovic and Keith Lee.
Uh-oh. Whoops. And that might make this a one-person show, folks, because I think Colin's Wi-Fi just took a crap. Ah, that's a shame. Well, it still says recording, but he is frozen. I don't know what to do here. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this journey so far for NXT and NXT UK. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. In the meantime, while he sets this up, allow me to put in some impromptu plugs. This show is brought to you by the Cleaver Con Andrews YouTube channel. Hey, folks, you want some